the active shooting standard that you guys have come up with at least gets closer to all of the people who are trying to carry out these kinds of attacks, whether or not they actually succeed at them.
You know what? And all the people who are at risk, right? I mean, that's the problem, right? We were looking for when is the public at risk and where are they at risk? And it doesn't, just because somebody comes in and they're an idiot with their gun because they just bought it and they don't know how to use it very well, and they spray all over and 25 people are injured and only 2 are dead, doesn't mean that that wasn't a horrible, horrific situation. Right. And so we were very concerned about what is the threat to the public and how do we capture everything on the threat to the public? Because when we started out, absolutely, I had I had people calling me and saying, hey, I think you should use a threshold because that's what researchers use. Researchers who don't have all the abilities that you guys have to research and data that you can pull from. They said, oh, you should use 3 or more or 4 or more. And I said, we're not using any or more. We're using 0. You can have somebody who comes in who's a horrible shot. But if they come in and they terrorize the world, we don't have a lot of active shooter situations where no one is killed. We usually somebody is killed. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the better number to go with. And now we have 20 some years of data that tells us a lot about, 2/3 of these are handguns that are, 2/3 of them are handguns. We have like 15 incidents involving women out of 300 plus, right? So the data has really helped us to see who is going out in public and doing this and who's willing to do it. Why are they willing to do it? What their breakdown is, because then our behavioral team down at Quantico is looking at who these particular shooters are. Plus, I will say this about the FBI's data. The FBI's data is based on police reports. And all the researchers, just because of what's available to them, can only look at open source. So it's going to be much more polluted data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just think if you're trying to understand this phenomenon of mass shootings, of randomized public attacks, right? Not your gang shootings or drug related shootings or even the family murders that we discussed earlier. Then it does make sense to approach it the way that you have. People need media. Obviously, I'm coming at it from a media perspective, so I think media needs to do a good job of explaining these things, right? And that an active shooter incident doesn't always mean Uvalde or Buffalo.
Right.
But if you want to get a better understanding of why these are happening they happening more often? What is the makeup of somebody who is trying to carry out an attack like this? Right. What are some of the similarities between them? What are some warning signs? That kind of thing. Then I do think taking that broad approach of it's broad in the sense that it doesn't rely on, body counts, but it's narrow in the sense that it's focused on people trying to carry out randomized public attacks in crowded, areas.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too when people talk about, we want this gun legislation or we want that gun legislation. And again, it goes back to this emotional aspect of it. But obviously, I focus on these most horrific public mass shootings. That's what I was tagged to do initially. But and your listeners know, 2/3 of the firearms deaths in the United States last year were suicides. Mm-hmm. So what is the threat to firearms deaths? It includes a lot of other things. It includes, hey, let's not have all these unsecured guns in homes. Hey, let's look at ways that we can make sure that we step in when somebody is under duress. We know, right? Mental health issues. People say, mental health. If you're getting mental health care, you're not our threat, probably, right? That's not mental health. But if you're under mental stress, and if you have financial problems, if you have a breakup or a relationship problem, if you lose a job, those are the stressors that are going to send our shooters over the edge.
And is that what you found in your research on this? Those are the sorts of things. What are those?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are these?
Those are the biggest categories: mental stress, financial stress, financial, bankruptcies, financial inability to pay your rent, right? Breakups and emotional problems, breakups with your wife or your partner, and a loss of a job. big job challenges. And those may seem like, well, of course, those are everybody's big stressors. Think about it. You put 2 or 3 of those. The FBI found in their research on stressors that everybody had 3 or 4 stressors. There were others certainly, but 3 or 4. Every single shooter in our active shooter study had 3 or 4 of those stressors. That means that there are a lot of people who are stressed around us. Put a pandemic on top of that, right? Put a recession on top of that. Put a job loss. Put not being able to pay your mortgage on top of that, and gas prices going up. All of those things are just little pieces of the Jenga puzzle that take somebody to that edge. And if they have access to a weapon, they may see that as a solution. And that's that trajectory towards violence that we're looking for. You have to look for people who they may be under all these stressors, but then they're planning and preparing. They're angry and they're ready to take it out on the people who have caused these problems that they have. They're ready to take charge and not be the one that's the victim anymore.